Thanks for joining us today for this Influence Women's webinar. We know that you have lots of things in your schedule and your time is valuable, and so we're always honored when you can join us. We hope that you will encourage others to come along and join us. You can get all the information about the upcoming events and webinars on the website at influencewomen.org. Join us on social media as well and stay connected. We'll see you next time for the next Influence Women's webinar. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen Cooke, Global Director of Influence Women, and this is the Influence Women webinar with Hannah Pierrou. Hannah, you are an amazing woman, and our webinar tonight is focused on children's productions and how we as creators can create effective programming for them. You are a expert on this, and you've worked with parenting groups all over the world, really. And your background is as a Christian artist and an author and a podcaster as well. You have an award-winning book called Misunderstood. You host the Treehouse Storyteller podcast called Upright Christian Parenting, where you encourage parents to raise their kids with biblical truth in today's culture. I know that you are a mom of three, married to a Marine there, and I know that you are on the move there in full-time parenting as well. So you live in the foothills of Colorado with some mini donkeys and goats and chickens, which I love. You've got the hands-on with that. But tonight we're going to talk about several things. Three key takeaways. So if you're watching with us tonight, we welcome you to this program. We ask that you turn off your video and audio screens at all times so that Hannah will have the full attention of being able to speak and teach tonight. She's going to be going through some great slides and some great teaching with you. At the end of our program, we will be opening it up to the chat room, and I'll be monitoring those chat room questions. So please put your chat room questions in the chat room, and I'll be asking those questions at the end of Hannah's teaching time tonight. I'll get it all out. But we are thrilled and excited. This is a monthly webinar of Influence Women. So if you're not familiar with Influence Women, you need to be. Tell others about it. We focus on women working in media, entertainment, arts, music, and leadership. We want to see you flourish. We want to see the content that's being produced and created on our screens, that it resonates with a biblical foundation and a biblical worldview. And that's our focus. We want to support you. So tonight's webinar is very special in that. And again, we're going to be focusing on children's programming tonight and how we can create effective children's programming, as well as some aspects. Some of you that may be joining us may be parents, and parents want to know, how can I help my children digest all of the media that's coming at them today as well? It's overwhelming. And sometimes for parents, it's very overwhelming on knowing what's good for them to watch, how long should they be watching, what kind of programs will actually help them grow their skills and talents, and mentally grow, from even a health point of view, and not only from a safe point of view, but a health point of view. How much should they be consuming, and what should they be consuming? So our key takeaways tonight that Hannah is going to be taking away, so I ask you to write these down as she goes along, is: how do we create tech boundaries with wisdom? How can we boost family connection with purpose through our media? And how can we embrace outdoor play as God intended, and not just have our eyeballs in the screen all the time? So again, welcome to the Influence Women podcast webinar tonight. We're doing the webinar, a little bit longer version of our podcast. We do have our podcast, so make sure you're watching those as well. But tonight we're welcoming Hannah Pierrou. Hannah, welcome to the program, and I'm going to have you just state just a little bit more about you and your background and how you really focus on what you're doing today in helping parents and helping us tonight.
Well, first off, Kathleen, thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you. It's such an honor to join your community and get to speak to all of your wonderful women that are tuning into this. I'm just thrilled to be here. Really, my heart behind my company, Treehouse Storyteller, started in kind of God just kind of snuck up on me, I guess you could say. And I just had such a burden on my heart seeing so many cultural issues really attacking our children.
Mhm.
And as a mom of three, I was seeing those very close to home with other, family members, extended family members, and their children really dealing with issues like anxiety or depression or gender ideology things. And gosh, it was something that I really felt like there needs to be more resources for the parent. There needs to be some more equipping from people such as myself saying, "Hey, like I want to hold hands with you and point you to the resource." And one of my favorite scriptures or part of scripture is when the disciples asked Jesus, "Hey, Jesus, where should we go do this Passover thing?" And Jesus says, "Hey, go to the town, you'll find a man with a water jug and ask him and he'll have an upper room for you." And so that's really been my heart, is to be the person with the water jug that says, "Hey, I have a resource for you and I can help show you the way, and I can give you this safe place where you can now do the thing." And so, that's really been my heart, and that's just kind of an image that the Lord gave me very early on. And so that's really what it is. So I have, my podcasts and books and resources really with every bit of it in mind for equipping the parent so that we can, really flood this next generation with God's truth. So so really tonight we're going to oh, Kathleen, I can't hear you. Were you talking to me? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had myself muted and I should have unmuted myself. Just right off the bat, just tell us as well how we can access Storyteller and some of your resources. We'll hit those again at the end, but I know there'll be people right now taking some notes and wanting that interest. So how do we access more information and more resources from you right now?
Absolutely. So you can go to thetreehousestoryteller.com, and there you'll find links to products, artwork, resources, blog, as well as my podcast, Upright Christian Parenting. So that's really where you can find everything and connect with me, and links to, all the social media is right there. So that's kind of your best launching point from there.
And I want to
So
point out that you spell your name Hannah. Hannah. Peru is how it's pronounced, but it's spelled Pierrou, like a peer and
yep.
a roux, ROU on the end. You know what, Hannah?
You got it.
I'm French. I came from a French background. Paillet was my last name,
Oh,
Paille.
really?
Yes.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I know these French names.
Yeah, this one's actually, it has Belgium roots, and then
Okay.
my husband's only a couple generations out of Sweden. So it's very interesting. So
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just thankful that there isn't a silent J in the name that there used to be.
Yes. So the storyteller not .com is where we need to get more your information. A
TheTreehouseStoryteller.com. Yep.
story, that treehousestoryteller.com. Yes, great. Awesome. Well, take us through. I know you've got some slides to show us tonight. If
Yep.
you're just listening to this, you'll just have to kind of walk through some of the slides, but we hope you're viewing this on the Influence Women YouTube channel tonight. And Hannah has a great presentation. So Hannah, take it away.
Awesome. Let me get my screen up here. All right. So I've titled it Be Kind, Rewind, and Unplug. So kind of a play off of, your 90s Be Kind, Rewind with your VHS. Really, just this idea of living in the moment. And I want to preface this by saying tonight's presentation is really going to be a little bit more from the eyes of the consumer than the creator. And I think it's important as creators to put ourselves in those shoes, whether we're marketing to someone or we're creating a story or creating content. We always have to kind of picture, okay, what is my consumer? What is my ideal person that is either listening, watching, or I'm selling to, right? What does that person look like? And so we're going to kind of build out what your consumer is needing without, hitting that too hard. I just want you to know that that's kind of the angle in which this is going to be coming from as creators. So if I was speaking to a group of moms, then I'd be, saying it that way. But speaking to all of us as creatives or in that space, that's the angle that I want us to see this. So hopefully that makes sense. So we'll kind of go through, some problems in our culture, some solutions, and then some connections and resources that I have for you guys. And I'm going to fire hose you. So hopefully you had your coffee today or something. So all enough about me. This is a quick picture of my family and my donkeys. This is about a year old, but they're great. The donkeys are great. The kids are great. We homeschool, so we are in each other's lives all the time. Um, and right before we started recording, I could hear my donkeys yelling for dinner. So today
Not,
we're gonna talk about some hard things, some big problems, but most importantly, some beautiful solutions and things that we can have the role of doing. My desire for you is to walk out of this space feeling encouraged and equipped to tackle some of these problems. And we'll focus on problems related to the technology generation and the way in which we can do our part to steer the direction of our next generation. Okay. So, what's our why? Why do we need to even address this? Well, our objective is understanding the danger of screens and how to navigate that. We're going to talk through some statistics. All surveys, I mean, you don't have to search the internet very hard to find a survey pointing to the need of reducing screen time or social media. And then from our relevance, we are raising kids, we're around the next generation, maybe we're creating content for kids in a, like, this is what I like to call it, a sideways culture. And we must battle to keep them pointed toward Christ and biblical truth. Less of the world, more of him. Okay. So here's the three things that technology can be if you're taking notes. Technology, and these are pretty easy to know. It can be useful and a productive tool. We're using it right now in a productive tool manner. It can be a constant distraction. I'm supposed to be going down to Home Depot to get supplies for our project, but instead I'm getting distracted by my phone. It can be a distraction. It can also be harmful to our health. That's, the worst case of it. Um, it can, so for understanding the useful and productive side, most of this is straightforward. We can connect with our phones. We can share ideas with our phones. Kathleen, you and I can, stay connected this way. We're miles apart, many states apart. We can explore new information using different media. We can learn. It's a tool to learn, to inspire, to fill us up. We sometimes we can save time if we utilize technology, right? We can save time then, instead of going to the library and going through the card catalog, we can really save time that way. Um, it can, phones especially, they can give us direction when we're lost. They can rescue us. We can call for help. Those are all amazing things that we can do with, especially just a handheld device. They can be distracting. So here's all the ways they can distract us. And remember, this is ways, as soon as media is on a device, now we can have just distraction in school, distraction from work. We can become reliant on them. It can distract us from relationships. So there's like kind of the negative side, some of the problems that they can pull us away from, really day to day life in front of us. As a mom, I always have my kids saying, "Hey mom, hey mom." I'm like, what? And I've got to catch myself. Okay, I'm getting distracted. I'm not being present with my kids, and I have to catch myself in those moments. The harmful side, we're going to talk about for a little bit. So whether it's media, computers, phones, tablets, um, goodness, it can just something as simple as like the lighting hurting our eyes, harsh screen lights. Games can be addictive. Uh, we can harm our personal relationships, like I mentioned with that distraction piece. Uh, we can get stuck in binge watching. That's when it shows really good, right? When we're binge watching. But it really that can be harmful to everything else that we need going on in our lives. So we can get stuck sitting indoors, become less active. I mean, you can just domino through that, the negative effects that some of that can have from the consumer side of things. So here's some statistics, okay? And these are ugly statistics that I don't enjoy sharing. Anxiety, this is in our youth, 1 in 8 kids and 1 in 3 kids are dealing with anxiety. That means if I have 3 kids, one of my kids at some point is dealing with anxiety. And I can see that. I can see it with adults now. I can see it with kids. This is something I talk about with everybody. Suicide is up 62% for ages 10 to 24. Kathleen, you told me a horrific story of a little girl that committed suicide. She hung herself when her mom took her phone away. I mean, it's just like, oh my goodness, like this is just, it's gotten out of hand. The level of, attachment to some of these things that kids are having. Depression is 44% of students. So this is a little bit more your like college age, older high school. So depression is 44%. That's nearly half. This is just and this data I think is a year old. So I don't know what it's become the last year. Then screen time has doubled since 2016. In our country, we're averaging 7 hours a day for our kids' screen time. This is insane, absolutely crazy, some of these statistics. So I wanted to pull some for the adults as well, as adults working through this. Anxiety, depression, mental health issues are directly impacted by screen use, specifically recreational use. So it's different. It's very interesting. It's different than if we're staring at a screen at work, but it's found that, that doesn't affect us as much as our recreational. So if we're watching shows, we are, looking at social media, we're streaming, we're scrolling, that recreational use is really the strong component for the increase of anxiety and depression. Another study found that reducing screen time to 2 hours a day for 3 weeks greatly improved depressive symptoms, stress levels, sleep, and overall quality of life. Now, I unintentionally accidentally did this the last few weeks. And so I kind of have my own little case study. Guys, I'm telling you, I had some travel. I was not touching my phone. I have barely been on screens the last few weeks. I have seen a definite change in my health. And it's incredible. I'm going through this slide and I went, "Oh my word. Maybe this is why I'm feeling so much better right now." I've had a detox. So it's fascinating. Um, so according to certain research, the brain experiences thinning of the cerebral cortex. This is crazy. This is where decisions and memory are stored. So I have to ask myself, when I can't think of that word that's an everyday word, am I really losing my mind or am I just literally because of my screen time use that now my memory is going bonkers because I can't remember that certain thing that needs to happen. Can't think of that random word. Like, it's crazy. So, thinning of the cerebral cortex. So, I want to kind of shift gears and I want to look at, really let's point to some scripture. And I have been studying so deeply in the armor of God lately that I had to bring this into it. And so I've done this same presentation a couple times. I've had to do it a couple times in a secular sense. And so I love that this is in a community of believers that I can really pull this piece in and really shed light on the armor of God. And going to Ephesians 6, we don't have to read the whole thing, but really putting on the armor and taking a stand against the devil's schemes is is one of those things that really stands out to me when we're looking at certain levels of technology. And we have to, as creators, um, really look at two different sides of this. We have to decide whether our media, whether the things that we're producing, is it kingdom minded or is it worldly minded? And that doesn't mean that everything needs to sign, you know, big, huge letters, Jesus, every single time. But does it follow God's word? Does it follow his truth? Does it align with his values or does it not? And if we're in the word, we will see that clearly whether it is or it isn't. And we really can just ask ourselves that question. And it sounds super simple, but I really think it is. I think if we are aligned with what the Lord has given us and his word as truth, then we will know through the Holy Spirit that, hey, this is abrasive against his word, or this is really, going right along with it and in line with what he has for his kingdom mindset. So that's something I would encourage you to do a deep dive in the armor of God. We don't have time for that this evening, probably for the other things I want to make sure and tell you, but just we are at the end of, let me find the end of it. So the end of the verse 18, it says, and pray in the spirit on all occasions. So when creating things, when doing our work, in all occasions, pray in the spirit with all kinds of prayer and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. So that's our job for people that are the consumers of what we are putting out there, right? We need to be praying for God's people to be able to receive our content and that our content is worth receiving in that manner. So pray also for me that whenever I speak, whenever I produce content, whenever I, create a post, whenever I put out a movie or commercial, whatever it is, words may be given to me so that I will fearlessly make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it fearlessly as I should. Now, in my line of podcast work, I touch on a lot of hard cultural topics, a lot of issues with public schools, a lot of issues with gender confusion. These are hot button topics. I have, a target on my back essentially for some of these topics, and I have to continually pray these kinds of verses over my heart because I have to remember the role that I have to be bold. And we as believers have to be bold. And I think if we're walking in God's boldness, our work is going to be an outpouring of that. So if that's truly what we believe is our role and our calling that we need to do, then our work is going to reflect that boldness. So that's my deep encouragement for you guys to just really sit with the Lord on and really think through. Um, so I kind of go through in this. I'm going to skip over some of the parts of the deeper parts of that so we can get into some other things. We'll go back to this one. So in that last part
I'm
of
gonna
Ephesians
interrupt
6,
you. It looks
go
like
for it.
it looks like, could you reshare your screen one more time? It looks like the screen may have gone off.
Okay.
If you could just share your screen again so we can see your slides.
Did it come back? Let me
No,
try again.
it has not come back.
How about there?
There we go. We're back on. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect. Okay.
Wanted to
Thank you.
make sure we could see your slides. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So the end of that chapter really tells us that boldness grows through repetition and relationship with God. And the prayer piece is what prepares us for that boldness. And so, really praying through what we're doing is so, so important. So, I try not to make equations with God because, you're like, oh, there's not a perfect equation on how to do this. But there are certain pieces of scripture that it really is, hey, put on the armor, do this, do this, do this, pray continually, and then now you'll have boldness. It really is a process that he's kind of outlined for us. So I think that's important to note. Okay, so we're going to go through some solutions that I promised to some of these problems. Now, we can get outside, sunshine and nature, like we talked about at the beginning. Um, Getting morning light, unplugging or limiting screen time, and being hands-on. Okay, whatever that looks like in your everyday life with the people that you love and want to be with. So getting outside, and this is things that we can encourage. I really think this kind of stuff can be pushed, um, really with media, with the proper outlets. I think this could be pushed a lot more, and I feel like I at least tend to gravitate, and I don't know if this is a trend or not, but I tend to gravitate toward at least shows, for instance, that have like a strong outside presence, because I think it's something that we're missing a lot in our everyday culture. And so if we can see outdoors on a TV screen, it's really refreshing because we're inside a lot, we're stationary a lot. So if there's that action piece, or we're out in nature and there's really beautiful things to look at, like I think our the generations that are, really living through our society right now are craving that piece. So outdoors, it's increasing our activity level. It's expanding our playtime. Even as an adult, we have that like need to be creative and to just play and to relax. It helps us explore new things and understand our world. I honestly also see this as a huge inspiration. Some of my best writings, my best revelations have come when we are, miles away from civilization. We do what's called overland camping. And if you're not familiar with that, it's where you really just load up for the weekend or the week, and you drive till you just can't drive anymore. I mean, there are roads, back roads, especially in Colorado, where they're unpaved. They have giant holes, giant rocks you have to get over, and we drive until we are tuckered out and we find a spot to stop. And so we are so far off the grid at that point. We have zero cell service, zero internet, nothing. And in God's nature, we really can relax and take everything in. And I feel like that is where everyone has a different place. It is their happy place to create. But for me, it is getting outside and really just letting the Lord talk to me, free of all of these distractions. And that's when I have the next, really good idea that comes to me. And he just, he fills my cup in that way. So fresh air can, and the light, especially the sunlight, can reduce cortisol levels, especially us women. I am 40 now, which, to some of you might sound like I'm a spring chicken, but to others might sound like, oh, she's 40. But my cortisol levels are being affected by my hormones. And so every little thing that I can do, this really, really helps us. From our health standpoint, it reduces our muscle tension, it reduces stress and anxiety, it improves our mood, and it can give active children time to exert their energy. So the kid that's, been pinned on, hey, they're ADHD, get them outside, get them outside. So there's so much here, just so much information. I hope this inspires you from the outside piece. Now, I'm going to nerd out for a second because this has really kind of changed our family's life in a little way. Getting outside first thing in the morning affects your body so much. Okay. So we are what's called diurnal species. So this is the opposite of nocturnal species. So obviously, nocturnal species is awake at night and asleep during the day. Well, we are humans. God created us to be diurnal species, which means we are supposed to be awake during the sunlight hours and sleeping when it's dark. And so when we expose our retinas to early light for even 20 minutes, the first thing in the morning we go outside, it is super beneficial to our hormone levels. It increases the production of healthy cortisol, which ignites your energy for the day. And then doing that promotes the production of melatonin so we can sleep at night. So it's such a perfect God created system that He gave to us. And what happens is that a lot of times we end up looking at screens really late at night, and that's not our intention. And so it's it's so much. I feel like I'm fire hosing you with negative information for creating screen things, but this is the way that our culture is going on an overdrive system, and the way to make it healthy is creating, finding, going, God, what's a really creative way to reverse what we've kind of created for ourselves, right? And so I mean, I don't have the answer for that one at all. I really, really don't. But creating, you know, a system that, really goes along with the diurnal species system would just be incredible. And if we can really encourage people to be outside in those hours and then plugging away on their screens during, the time that it makes sense, would be like super, super fascinating science. Um, so that's something to chew on and something to keep us healthy, because I think that, you know, as at least for me, in order to do my work, I'm on a screen a lot. And so to know where that boundary is and to know what's healthy for me so that I can be doing my best and giving the Lord my best at my work and not harming myself in the process, if that makes sense. So, really finding that balance of, God, where is it healthy for me to be doing this? What can I outsource for someone else to look at a screen? I mean, that's been a big thing for me, is what can I hand off? And, what other things? Here's one tip I have learned, is that I have to have handwritten um, experiences in my time. So instead of just sitting there typing, if I'm writing something, I stop and I sketch it out, or I handwrite and I use pen and paper. And then we have really cool technology. I take a picture with ChatGPT and say, "Hey, type this up for me, dude." And then I spent 1 minute on the screen, but 20 minutes writing by hand. And so I think there's some really cool resources and tools that help us to stay off of the screen when we don't necessarily need to be on the screen, so that we can be on it for the fun things and the things we want to be there. So, all right, that was a mouthful. All right, so setting healthy screen time limits. We can set time frames. There's so many cool tools and resources and notification settings that we can do things like that. One of my favorite things is creating a home station for your phones or tablets. So if you've got kids, or even honestly, this really works well with spouses as well. But having, a kind of a home base that you're putting, hey, we're putting our phone right here, and that's where it's staying. And now we're going to be, really having life and talking. Um, this is a huge one for me, is closing out tabs and apps when we're not using it. I am the personality type that has 1,000 things open all the time. And so I have to remember to close them out. And I feel like most of us creatives kind of live in that realm of a lot of a lot of ideas, a lot of chaos, and we can manage it really, really well, but it is distracting. So if we can, discipline ourselves to kind of clean house and clear out our digital life, then we can have stronger focus. So here's some other ideas. Activate do not disturb during family time. No phones at dinner is a huge, huge rule for us. Um, and let your device lose battery occasionally. It's totally fine for it to go dead and just you lose it for a little bit. Unless someone's, having a baby and you're the midwife, you can let it die for a little bit. So in the moment, I want to encourage you all to have engaging conversations one on one. I really do feel like it goes back to kind of this inspiration piece. If we are not learning to live in our daily life, I don't feel like we're allowing enough space for ideas and creativity to flow. If we're constantly staring at the screen, constantly trying to make posts or, whatever we're, for me, it might be making an Instagram post or something like that, or a TikTok video or whatever it is. Kathleen, like you say, anyone that has a phone in their hand is a content creator. Isn't that what you always say? And so really what we need to remember is that when we take some time away, usually I believe we have a lot more experiences happening in our real day-to-day lives in person, that now we have 80 million more ideas of what we could do, and our content just explodes from that because we have the ability to reflect on what the Lord's taught us. And if it's just so much noise all the time, then we're kind of quenching that ability to allow the Lord to speak to us in that way. um so there's tons more ideas on my blog, so I'll let you guys go there for more resources. Here's a couple really good resources. I put a fun plug in that one of them's mine, but the first one is 1,000 Hours Outside Until the Streetlights Come On. Jenny Urick is the author. This is a really fun book if you're into Audible. Really fun book to listen to. She does the Audible actually, and I just love it when the authors do it themselves, because you really feel like you hear from their heart a little more so, and as opposed to someone else. But she really goes through a lot of the science that I kind of touched on, and she goes way deeper into all of that. Um, Another one is Dr. Dunkley's Reset Your Child's Brain. There's so many books. If you go down a rabbit hole of just searching on the topic of, screens um, kind of, I think there's one called The Anxious Generation. That is next on my list. Just really understanding the adverse reactions of screen time. I think we have to know the problem in order to produce something that's counteracting the problem. And, really deep down, it comes back to the idea of, are we creating content that's kingdom minded, or are we creating it that's worldly minded? And as believers, we have to be pushing. If we want people to feel healthier after reading our content, if we are watching our content, if we want people to be feel uplifted or encouraged or equipped or inspired, then we have to be bigger than what the world is showing us. And the world might, I'll use the word sexy. The world might look sexier than some of our content. The world might, have a shinier, flashier hue than ours. But we have to be coming at it with boldness and with truth. And that's really the point that I want to hit home, is that main question. And I just, you John 1:1, though in the beginning was God, and the word was with God, or the word was God. I kind of like playing on kind of the idea of, in the 20th century was technology, and technology was the with the world, and technology was the world. Because that's how it started. Technology started as just the world. It wasn't this like Christian platform. But we as believers can take such a cool tool and such an amazing resource and platform, and we can now point it toward Christ. And we can now reflect that and use that as a way to share the gospel, and use that a way to, really spread, all the mysteries that we read in Acts. And so, I don't know if here's another fun idea or a fun thought. But First Peter 5:8 says to be sober minded. And if you guys have teenagers, you've probably or been around teenagers, you've probably heard the terminology brain rot. And it's kind of a funny word. It's a laughable term, but really at the root of brain rot is the opposite of sober minded. So brain rot is really where we're just consuming all this just really pointless nonsense screen time, and there's nothing fruitful, there's nothing meaningful, there's nothing impactful. We're not, building on our lives. It's like you're watching like the little bunny go around in a circle or something. It's just pointless entertainment. um, but if we're sober minded, if we have, a mind of Christ, then we're going to be filling our minds and filling our eyeballs, filling our ears, and all of that. We're consuming things that have, that deeper level of, they've got meat and potatoes. They are fruitful. They're, really walking in step with the Spirit. And so that's another kind of little equation for you of really the enemy seeks to devour. And I think brain rot really sounds like an act of the enemy if you think of that terminology. But being sober minded, we're filling ourselves with the good. So how much time do I have, Kathleen?
Well, I was just gonna start to interrupt you because
That's just fine.
we're running toward the end. This has been absolutely fantastic. So much great
Oh, thank
information.
you.
And I know that our listeners are going to be writing lots of notes and contacting you with more questions. But we do have some questions in our chat room, and I thought we'd like to go to some of these questions and have you go there, and then just a few conversations and chats we can have between the two of us as well tonight. First of all, we do have a lot of creators and artists watching this program tonight, and we're wanting to teach our kids um, how to write. And I think often what robs our kids from great writing and being able to write is exactly some of the things you're talking about, is
Mm.
not getting outside enough, not getting out in seeing the world in the bigger picture, where our eyes are on our screens and just so consumed in our own little narrow world in that little rectangular screen we're looking at. And so encouraging women, kids to particularly write. What would you say about having kids look at educational programming, a documentary, a story about a particular person, or some information? I love the Discovery Channel. I love the History Channel. All of those have great educational programs on them. And then having them come back and do some writing on what they've seen, and how that what has actually been taken in, that they can then
Mm.
feed back. As a homeschool mom and a mom of three kids, have you done any of that kind of work with kids in the past?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, goodness, I'm trying to think off the top of my head something that maybe we've done. Um, I am a sucker for those kind of shows as well. I really do enjoy those. There's a new show I was watching on an airplane recently. I can't think of the name of it, but I think it was exploring different national parks, and I really, really liked it. And it's fascinating. But I think one of the best things that I could maybe encourage children to do is, yes, watch the information. It's beautifully done. It's super inspiring, but also pick up a book about it, like basically to be well rounded while receiving the information. And then, I've got two younger girls, and my 6 year old specifically, she will take what she watches, then unplug, and then she goes and plays. And so she's not fully writing yet, but she is fully writing and creating stories. She just isn't physically writing them down, but she is writing in her head and she's acting out now what she's seen. And so I'm seeing kind of this, have that amazing put together inspiration. Maybe let's read and push into the topic a little more. And now let's play and have that creative mode kick in. And then, something that she does that I let her do because she's the age that she is and she can't physically just write a full story on her own yet. She will talk text into a notes app on an iPad, and she'll write that way, and then we'll print it out and we'll read it together. And
Mhm.
so that's one of the ways that I can see like a really young child doing that. Now my older kids, I have an almost 15-year-old son and then a 12-year-old daughter as well. And for them, really pushing, I think it's important for us to teach our kids to, really have kind of that double piece of take the video content, take the film, but then let's also find a source that we can cite additionally to the film. But I think both are, I mean, completely amazing. And so I don't know if I answered your question fully, but
Yeah.
I think, really I see that the other step of that would then be, especially a nature kind of show, is now let's go outside and see what we notice based off of whatever the topic was, if it's an occasion that we can do that. Another
Mhm.
thing we've done is go to the zoo after or before watching a show like that, and then you're really inspired because you kind of got to touch and feel in real life the situation or the animal or whatever it is.
That's good, really good. As an actress in Hollywood for many years, I took lots of acting classes and have a daughter who's now an actress as well and writes and produces. And early on, she, at the age of 6 and 7, in fact, I laughingly say she was the first one in our family to get a Hollywood agent because of the work she was already getting as a young child. But I had an opportunity to take some classes with Uta Hagen, and Uta is one of the most classic performers of all times, and you can just do some research on her. She was part of the original circle that really brought acting into view and working from what we call the inside out, working from not just what we're seeing in our environment, but take what we're actually consuming and then being able to take in and apply to characters and the work that we do as actresses and actors. So I asked Uda one day, I said, I have this young daughter and I want to inspire her and help her along her way. And I said, what's the most important thing I should be doing for her as an actress? And she thought for a moment, and I laughingly say, she was a chain smoker, and she always had her dog with her at all of her classes. So I was like, well, let me think here, that kind of thing. And then she looked at me and she said, really, the most important thing you can do is have her experience everything she can possibly experience in life. Take her in a hot air balloon, teach her how to ride a camel, take her to a hospital and watch, how nurses and doctors perform, and um, just have her experiencing everything she can possibly do. And I think about that from time to time, which I did with my daughter, of course. And that's why she's a wonderful actress, I might add today, but laughingly. But, and she really truly is. But But I look at that and I think, I think about how much time our kids are on our screens and that they're not experiencing things for themselves in real
Hmm.
nature, in getting out. So I loved your comments about getting them out in the morning, and doing, experiencing different things, taking them to the zoo, having them do science experiments, all sorts of fun things, making things, and participating in, giving back to community. I
Hmm.
did that a lot with our daughter. I was involved with the Salvation Army for many years, and we would go and ring the red kettle at Christmas time, and stand in the line and hand out food at Thanksgiving, and at those kind of things. So you can do lots of those kind of things with your kids that actually, as an actor, for those of you that are watching too, that can actually grow your own experiences even as an adult in that
Yeah.
respect. I just love how you focused in on that. And the second thing that really I picked up tonight too that I wanted to circle back on is being in the Word. I think it's so important. I wrote a devotional, Hope for Today, the number four, Hope for Today, Stay Connected to God in a Distracted Culture. And it's based on an 8-year, $1 million study on the habits and activities of Christians and what we do that actually affects our lives. How often we go to church and read our Bible and pray and watch great podcasts like this one. Go to church, listen to preachers, listen to Christian music. We do all these things as Christians to help us and grow us as believers. But the single most important thing that came out of this 8-year, $1 million study was our own personal engagement with God at least
Hmm.
4 or more times a week. And so I encourage our listeners that, yes, I loved what you said, is go back into the Word, listen to Him, grow in your own spiritual communication with God. He will
Hmm.
be talking to you, and He will guide us on how
Hmm.
do we consume media correctly? How do we produce media that will affect our world and particularly resonate with our kids and our parents today in wanting them to grow in kingdom purposes and in a biblical worldview. So I picked up on what you were saying with that, and to be alert. I loved how you talked about the armor of God and taking on the full armor of God. And so I encourage us tonight, as we remember these things, to not just hear about them, but actually do it. Get in the Word
Yeah.
4 or more times a week and watch your lives change. And not only
Hmm.
that, this statistic showed that people from the outside can actually see it in your own life. And I think so often we just need to remember to model who we are as Christians in the way we consume our media, and how we can share uh, our consumption and our knowledge with others as well. And I know that, when I'm around people that are eating healthy, I tend to eat more healthy.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
and
That's
so
right.
when we're consuming our media in healthy ways, I believe we're going to also make an impression and help others consume media as well. So, um,
Yeah.
but it's been a great evening tonight. Um, Finally, I wanted to make a comment on brain rot, and watching this mindless stuff that you talked about. It's real. It's important,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it
Yep.
shortens our maturity. It shortens our wisdom, and cuts us off at the knees, so that we
Hmm.
just become kind of zombies, really, as humans. Just we're not being interesting. I love how Charles Dickens talked about in his writing and how he wrote that he would take nightly walks and walk around England. And I believe some of the best characters that he was able to write and know about, that we now still love, when he's written all the wonderful characters in so many of his writings, came from these nightly walks where
Yeah.
he was making observations. As actors, as writers, we have to observe real people in real circumstances. And so if we're going to write well and produce great children's programming, adult programming, whatever we're working on, sculptures or music or television programming, whatever we're doing, writing books, we need to be observers of who people are
Yeah.
and being able to do that. And so that means we got to take our eyes off our screens and start monitoring our time as well. So, well, thank you
Yeah.
so much tonight, Hannah, for what you shared with us. I want to remind our viewers that we are a monthly webinar. And next month, Michelle Watson Canton will be joining us. She's called the Dad Whisperer. And she has some interesting work that she's done on how we as women have sometimes been held back because of male issues in our past, whether it would be from a father or a husband or a boyfriend. Sometimes those words of our mouths that come out affect our brains, and particularly from men in our life because of our past and what they've said to us. They've stifled sometimes our creativity, sometimes the work that we do in our own success as producers and writers and creators and artists. So Michelle's going to be addressing some of those issues next month. It's going to be a very fascinating webinar. So I'm in hope that our viewers will be able to tune in on that. Again, if you're not able to catch these live, we will be recording them and putting them on our Influence Women YouTube channel. So make sure you're catching them on the Influence Women YouTube channel. We do have great podcasts there as well. We also record many of our in-person events that you can watch those. We want to be a source for you to grow your work and your skills as producers, writers, directors, musicians, all areas of artists, and be able to change our media through what we're seeing in our screens. We want you to flourish in those skills and talents that God's given you. So, Hannah, thank you again so much for this wonderful webinar. Make sure that you are connecting back with Hannah. Remember, her name is spelled Hannah Pierrou. It's pronounced Peru, but it's got a Belgium spelling as
Yes.
well. So thanks so much tonight, Hannah, for joining us. And I'm going to have you not share your screen anymore. We'll be taking that off and just saying goodbye to you as well. Any final word that you might have for us tonight?
Yes. Just thank you so much again for having me. And I just really appreciate this time together.
Wonderful. We'll see you next time for the Influence Women webinar. Thanks so much for joining us.